If for some reason anybody needs to jump out of this early, these always get recorded and we do put them up on YouTube. So if you have to leave early, it's not a huge deal. Like I said, today's webinar, this will be a relatively quick one. I'm just going to cover some questions. This is a Q&A, so any questions that you guys might have, feel free to post them in the Zoom group chat there, and I will get to those. I did have a lot of people email me questions ahead of time, so I'm just going to start with those, and then we'll kind of go from there. So one of the first questions I got, I don't know, when we do these webinars, I don't know how many people currently have Captos or use Captos, or how many people are just kind of on it because they're interested in Capto. So one of the main questions that I got was the cost. How much does the Capto unit itself cost? So there are two prices. There's the retail cost, which is $2,100 US. But then there's also the PGA or the LPGA professional price, which brings that down to $1,890. So if you are a PGA or an LPGA professional, feel free to reach out to myself or to Ian. I'll have our emails on the next slide here, and you just have to give us your PGA or LPGA number and you'll receive that discount. What's included with that price there is you do get 1 year of free warranty and software, which is nice. So any update that they come out with, you do receive all those updates free of charge. They come out with updates relatively frequently. This month alone, I think they've had 2 or 3. And a lot of them typically are more kind of geared towards the aesthetic. They're pretty happy with the performance of the product itself. And now it's trying to optimize it for coaches and players. So any suggestions or input that you guys have, whether you're a coach, a player, whoever it is that's using this device, feel free to notify or let myself or Ian know. Like I said, what those suggestions are, we'll pass them on to their team out in Italy. And they're very good about responding. If they like the suggestion, they'll definitely go forward with incorporating it into a future update. There was obviously a big update release that was just done. One of the questions I did get wanted me to cover some of those updates. I'm not going to dive into them too much because I did that a month ago in the previous webinar we did. So if you didn't get to see that webinar, feel free to email me. I can send you a direct link to that YouTube video or go onto our YouTube page. I'll just go ahead and go to this next slide. So you can go to YouTube Game Like Training. And then under playlists, we do have a whole playlist of just Capto data or Capto videos and hacks and that kind of thing. So there is all those videos on the new updates are within that playlist. So on this slide, I'll just cover this. My name is Arick Zeigel. If you haven't attended a Capto webinar, I am a Capto expert coach, and I am a managing partner for GLT Golf LLC. We are the U.S. distributor for Capto products, so we handle all the shipping of their units that are bought in the United States, as well as their demo units and stuff. I'm going to get into that in a second. I'm also the director of instruction at the AJ Golf Academy here in Atlanta, Georgia. My email is there, azeigel@gltgolf.com, and my phone number, that's my cell phone there, so feel free to reach out to me. And then we also are on Instagram, Capto Golf USA and Game Like Training. So feel free to follow us and stay up to date on all future offerings and things like that. So getting back to some of the questions, one of the questions that I got was somebody was asked about the warranty, the software, the fees, that kind of thing. Because I know with something like TrackMan, they do charge you those fees every year. With Capto, the first year is included, the hardware, so that's the warranty, and the software subscription, that's all included the first year. And then after that year, you have the choice of purchasing both of those or just one of those. Let's say you just want the software subscription. That's $200 a year, US dollars, and that gets you all the updates. Now, you don't have to buy that, and this is something important to note. You don't have to buy the software subscription or the renewal. It just means that you won't get any future updates, and wherever your Capto device, whenever it was last updated, that is going to be the software that you are going to be able to use. So if you're happy with where it is after the year, feel free to keep it. You don't have to pay that $200. But ultimately, it's a pretty fair price point, I believe. It's not going to be nearly as steep as, say, something like TrackMan will be. The annual hardware subscription, that's also $200 a year as well. So that's the warranty subscription. What was one of the other questions I got? So the demo process. So like I said, I work for a company. I'm a managing partner of GLT Golf LLC. We handle all the distribution of Capto in the United States as well as the education. So during webinars like this. So if anybody is interested in the demo process, if you don't already have a unit, the demo process is pretty easy. You're going to send an email request to Ian. Ian's email is Highfield, HIGHFIELD @gltgolf.com. That's going to get you a demo unit for 2 weeks. So you get to mess around with it. You get to use it. You get to play with it. If you have any questions, you're going to either end up on the phone with myself, another gentleman named Nick Duffy, or we also have another guy up in Canada, Nick Starchuk as well. So you'll probably end up on the phone with one of us three. We can answer any questions. We can walk you through the unit as well. I always suggest going to the YouTube page. There's all the videos kind of to get you started are on there. But we do have 3 demo units, and those are currently all out. So you will be waitlisted, and then we'll get those out to you. All we do is we take your credit card details, and we're going to put a hold on your card for the value of the unit. So if you're a PGA member, then there'd be a hold on your credit card for $1,890 US. And then after 10 days, you'll receive a return label, and you'll just put it back in the box, send it back to us. Doesn't cost you anything, and then that hold comes off your credit card. So you'll receive some follow-up on the end of that demo period, as well as some education. Then you'll get added to the mail list and all that, so you can stay up to date with all the offers and the education that's coming out. Let's see, one of the other questions, I'm trying to see if anybody has posted any questions. Again, if somebody just joined in, feel free to please post some questions if you guys have any. This is going to be a Q&A. And if we have some time at the end, I'm also going to do a little case study because that was one of the questions I got from somebody via email. One of the other questions that I got was the level 1, level 2 certifications. Are they worth doing? And what do they entail? So the level 1 certification is currently online. And the level 2 certification will be online. Sorry, missed price. PGA Pro. So Will, to answer that question, the PGA price is $1,890. Normally it's $2,100. Okay, so the level 1 certification is currently online. The level 2 certification will be online. They're shooting for a launch date of February this year, 2019. So that'll be exciting to have that up. Currently, the level 2 is only done in person. That is done by Luca, who developed the product, and he did one at the PGA show. I got to attend it. The level 2 was incredible. It was, I think it was 8-hour certification, and it wasn't your run of the mill, where he was talking at you the whole time. It was very much a conversation. Everybody had input. It was really, really good. But the level 1, just to give you an idea, it's very much the basics of Capto. It's an overview of the product. It's kind of the education that you would expect to get when you get a new product. The basic physics that apply to putting, an overview of the Capto data, how to adjust the settings, create reports, that kind of thing, as well as the overview of the modes. And then when you get into the level 2, it just dives deeper into all that. You go a little bit more into the trembling and handling features of Capto. It goes a little bit more into the 3D portion of Capto as well, and a lot deeper into the physics of not only putting, but also putter fitting. So the level 2 is definitely something that I'm excited for them to get launched online as well. So if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and answer this next one. This one's a little bit more long-winded of an answer. This kind of leads into the case study. So somebody was asking me, what features do I like to use the most? So let me go ahead and share the Capto screen. Okay, so just to give everybody a little backstory on this student, we didn't have a ton of time towards the end of our lesson, but we did a little bit of stuff with her full swing, and then she was talking to me pretty heavily about her struggles with putting, mainly pertaining to distance control. And the more I kind of questioned her, the more, I kind of got some clarity as to what was going on, but it sounded like she had no idea what she was doing when it came to distance control. She didn't know if it was something to do with tempo, if she had no idea how to read the green. She didn't know what the culprit was, but ultimately she would hit one putt, it would come up really short. And then maybe on the next hole, if she had another long putt, she would hit it way past. So she said there was no consistency in her tendencies when it came to lag putting. So we had about 10 minutes. I threw on the Capto onto her putter, and I had her hit a few putts. And let me go to the very first putt here. And the main one I'm looking at here when it comes to distance control or people struggling with that distance control and lag putting is I look at this energy loss. And so the first putt she hit was 2.7%. I think this one actually went a pretty good distance, kind of, pretty close to the hole. She's probably a 20 handicap. So it was relatively close to the hole within a decent proximity. And then the next putt she hit was an energy loss of almost 12%. And the main thing that I was noticing was this sweet spot rotation. And so the first putt was only a 3% loss, which was really good. Right, we can see it's all in the green here. So 3% loss was good. It was only 6% energy loss out of the heel. And the next putt was a almost 11% loss out of the toe. And then she proceeded to hit the next one. So that one came up, this putt came up really short. So then she not knowing that it was more of an issue with where it struck on the putter face, she decided to hit the next putt harder. So what happens when she hits the putt harder and she actually hits it more towards the true sweet spot of the putter? Well, now this one went like 15 feet past, and she's like, that's exactly what's happening. I'll hit one and it comes up short. So now I'll try to hit the next one harder, and all of a sudden it goes really far. So she didn't know what exactly was causing that. And ultimately it was a lack of awareness of where that ball was hitting in the putter face. So this one, again, up to 16% energy loss. And that one was a little bit in the heel. And then this was the really bad one. This was one we had a 21% energy loss. And you can see 22% out of the toe. So what we did was we took a little face spray and we sprayed the face of the putter. She hit those putts. And we looked at where they were all hitting on the putter face. And believe it or not, this one was definitely a little bit out of the toe. But this one was, it's 10.7% of the toe. That one was actually right in line with the sight line of her putter. And she's playing with a blade. I believe it was, she has a, let's see if we can find it. Not in there. Sorry, when I did the update, it deleted some of my putters there. So it's a blade putter. I want to say it's a ping answer. But so this one, the interesting thing about this one was it was hit directly in line with that sight line. And so something that a lot of players don't understand, and a lot of golfers and maybe even some coaches, is that the sight line of the putter isn't always the true sweet spot of the putter. It is very dependent on a lot of different factors. The hosel insert, the hosel attachment, the size of the grip, the length of the shaft. And one of the biggest influences is going to be how tight the player is holding the putter, is going to be a big influencer there, and where that sweet spot will actually be. So after we measured a few putts and we started to notice that the pattern was relatively towards the middle of the putter, maybe a hair towards the toe, as we saw with this one, then I made a new mark with a Sharpie on her putter, which was probably a centimeter and a half towards the heel. And we finally got one to 1.7% loss in the heel. And so that resulted in a much more consistent energy loss. And all of a sudden her ability to control distance became much easier. Now there's a lot of other things going on in her putting stroke that we need to address. But when it comes purely to the distance control piece, that's mainly what we were looking at. And I think one of the cool things was I saw her about a week later, and she made the comment that she has never putted so well in her life. She finally has an understanding of what was causing these issues in her distance control. And now that she has a clear idea, a clear understanding, a clear plan as to what she needs to work on and needs to improve, she put that mark, she continues to put that Sharpie mark on the top of her putter. And she's starting to minimize the number of 3 putts and gosh, even 4 putts that she was having. but she's starting to putt better, and all of her friends were wondering what she was doing, and she said she was trying to explain to everybody where the true sweet spot of their putters was, which turned into a whole long conversation. But I thought that was just a cool thing to share, because like I said, we only had maybe 5 or 10 minutes to do this right at the very end of the lesson, and it was very quick. Once you get familiar with the Capto and all the data that it's showing, you can start to pinpoint the things that play a big role in obviously the directional components as well as the distance control components. And the more you start to use Capto, the more you start to, I guess, improve on the questioning or the quality of the questions that you have for the student. So it was pretty quick after I started asking her questions as to what tiles I needed to look at. And so we started with the energy tile. That's obviously going to play a big factor in the distance control piece. So there's the top spin, there's the face to path spin, which she needs a little bit of work there. And then there's obviously the torque. And for her, that torque was one of the biggest issues. Oops, let's get into this one. So 22% of that 20% energy loss was all because it was hit out of the toe. And so that obviously led to a good conversation and then a good solution from there. All right, so let me go back to this. Okay, anybody have any other questions? I can come up with a few things that I know I've been asked, but if nobody has any questions, I'll just keep going. Feel free, like I said, make sure you post those questions into that chat for me. Because I still have some time here, I'll go ahead and cover some of the updates that they did, even though, like I said, I did a video on that previously. We'll go ahead and cover some of those updates. So let me go back to this. So one of the updates they did, let's go back to the home screen. You can go into settings. They now have the player view in graphs. And all that really does is it switches around the direction that the putter is oriented. So for a right-handed putter player, it's obviously going to look like you're looking down at the putter. So if I deselect that in the settings, you can see how it switches to now it would be looking at it almost from the coach's perspective if you were, on a face-on view. So, not a mind-blowing or game-changing update by any means, but it is a nice added feature. It kind of simplifies it for when students and players are looking at that information. Okay, got a couple questions here. Can it measure top and bottom contact? As of right now, it doesn't. I can definitely make that suggestion to the crew out in Italy. Let me write that one down. Yeah, no, that would be a nice feature for them to add for sure. I'll speak to Luca about that and see if there's something they can work on in that regard. Angles, delta stats, not sure I understand those. Okay, I'll get into the deltas. Offer a 2-3-hour session for coach to visit and get more training. If so, cost and date potential. So Will, go ahead and if you can type your email in there, it'll only come to me, so you don't have to worry about everybody getting that. But Will, if you can send me your email, I'll connect with you personally on that. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so last thing, I just got an update on my thing saying we got 10 minutes left. So the angles delta stats. Let me take a photo of this real fast. Okay, so the angles, this is one of the features that they changed in the update. Where this chat bar. So the delta is, let me go to a different player, sorry. Just go to Okay, so the delta is just showing you basically the difference relative to the ideal. So this face, which is going to be kind of the orange line here, as we kind of play this through, we're going to see that the max inversion is plus 7.7. And if we actually went to the face graph here, you're going to see that there's a difference of these of 4.4 with a max of 7.7. So if this matched up perfectly, let me go back to that, if what I was doing, which is this blue, if what I was doing matched with the ideal, then the delta would be the exact same. So ultimately, the closer these are to that white line there, to that baseline, like you can see the lie of this stroke really didn't change at all. So the closer those are to that white line, then the closer that person's putting stroke is to matching the ideal for that stroke. Does that answer the question? I got another. Cool. How does the calibration, so the calibration, it's not actually identifying the sweet spot, the center of gravity. It is measuring the torque that is being applied. So it is measuring, because it captures at 300 to 400 frames per second, depending on what setting you have it on. It's measuring at a very consistent or a very accurate high frame rate to where when that putter or the ball is struck on the putter face, if it is struck anywhere outside of that true sweet spot, and there is any sort of torque applied to the putter head, it's going to represent it in that putter face or sweet spot rotation. So it's not actually measuring or calibrating the sweet spot of the putter, because ultimately it doesn't know where the sweet spot of the putter is. It just knows that, like in this instance, it was 5% loss out of the toe. So this putter face opened at 66 degrees per second. Does that make sense? So so it's typically sunlight creates issues. Yeah, so taking it outdoors can definitely be an issue when you're looking at it from this perspective. What I would suggest doing, if you click on the numbers here, it's going to take away the visual of the actual putter, and it makes it a lot easier to see when it's just showing you those raw numbers versus the actual kind of nice little visual putter heads that they have there. That's really the only thing I can do, or that I do when it comes to being out in the sun. That, and I also have a cover for my laptop that protects it from, just angle it away from the sun, and it prevents the sun from getting too glary onto the screen there. How does it calculate the sweet spot plane? The sweet spot plane, good question. Let's go here. So the sweet spot plane is based on Luca's theory of absolute rotation, I believe is what he calls it. And that is ultimately if this player, the three-dimensional path that they start the putter on, that they're moving it on, if you take away the variable of the face rotating or the lie changing, this would be the perfect rotation. So the face to path numbers, all that stuff, the delta graphs, all that would be 0. So that would be basically perfect rotation relative to the path that player is taking the putter on. That's the three-dimensional path. So that includes kind of the lateral movement, as well as how much rise and I guess hit or downward movement into the golf ball, that three-dimensional path, if that makes sense. So when you see a difference of the putt plane to the sweet spot plane, that one's actually a little close. Let's try to find a better example. So when you find a big difference like that, actually I have a really good example for you guys here. Let's go to Walt. Okay, so here's a good one. So when you get the sweet spot plane well below the actual putt plane, that tells me that there's either something going on with the lie, there's a change in the lie angle, or something to do with the face rotation. So it is going to be, for this player I know is stroke, he has a very closed face takeaway. And so the sweet spot plane is, if you imagine I have a string with a metal ball on the end, it just knows where that object is moving around. It doesn't actually know how that ball is spinning. And there's a video I did on YouTube that explains that a little bit further. I only have a couple minutes left, it's saying, so I don't want to spend too much time explaining that. But we did put a video on YouTube explaining that in more detail. But basically, if the putt plane matches the sweet spot plane, then the face to path, the shaft to arc, all that stuff is going to be 0. So they call it, just to answer your question, I'm not entirely sure who sent that. So the question I just got, but you said earlier that Capto doesn't know the sweet spot. Yes, they do not know the sweet spot. They are taking a point that is, I think they're taking a point that is right behind the putter head. And so they're taking just this kind of arbitrary point, and I'll have to get a little bit more detail on that for you. But my understanding is it's a point behind the putter, behind the putter head, that they basically use as if, like I said, if it was a metal ball, and how it's not influenced by the face rotating or by the shaft plane changing at all. And I think they actually have that written in here. Yeah, so it's calculated through, this is very complicated. But it's reducing the putter to a material point. Yeah, so they call that the sweet spot. So it's not necessarily the sweet spot in the conventional way of thinking of it, as much as just the terminology that they're using. Okay, I got time for one more question. How would you describe trembling and handling? Handling is any twisting occurring that is usually, it's going to be caused by the hands. You will see this number typically, it can increase when you use bigger grips or fatter grips because of how much rubber there is under that. When there's actually a little bit more give to like those Super Stroke Fatsos, there's a little bit more give in that grip as far as you can kind of twist it around the shaft a little bit more. So I have used, I have seen issues with that, people using very large grips, and that handling number can get a little bit higher. Whereas the trembling is, excuse me, is measuring accelerations, whether it's towards or away from the target or up or down relative to the ground, whereas handling is the degrees per second, that twisting rotation. Okay, I don't have any more questions. We have time for one more question. I got less than a minute here, it says. But if anybody does have any other questions, feel free to email me. Let me go back to my email here. Share. My email is here. Feel free to email me any other questions you have. I'm more than happy to jump on a phone call with you guys, and more than happy to set up a private, FaceTime or something like that as well. Sorry, last question. How often do you see high severity with handling? I see it almost everyone except younger players. It's a great question. I haven't seen or noticed a trend like that, to be honest. That would be something that